Alrighty, I guess we are live, and my monitor is a little low. There we go. That's a little bit better. Sorry about that. Alrighty. So it's 6 o'clock, and all is well. And the internet's going wild right now because apparently there's a political thing on that's really awesome. So those of you who decided to dodge that and come here, thank you for coming to this awesome event. If you didn't know, my name is Raven Oak, and I am a science fiction and fantasy author that lives in the Seattle area. And this is a book launch event that we are doing virtually for Voices Carry, which is my new memoir. And so, it's one of those things where it is just now 6:01, and I know some people are kind of trickling in, and hopefully all of this is good. There is a lovely chat bar. Well, I think actually for y'all it'll be that way, but that way. There we go. I can point correctly. If you're running into any audio video issues, if you can't hear me, see me, things of that nature, feel free to drop something in the chat. You can also drop things in the chat as we go through the evening. If you have questions, comments, reactions, whatever floats your boat. And that will also help me know who's here and help me when it comes time to give away prizes, because we have prizes. And the only way I can really do that is to see you in the comments that way. And that way I can be like, oh, hey, let's do a random number on how many people are in the comments. All right. So I do see a comment from Elise. Hello, Elise. And so I'm assuming that then everything is live and going spectacularly. Awesome. All right. So why a memoir? I'm going to kind of start with that a little bit because most people who know me as a science fiction and fantasy author, as I mentioned a minute ago, and not a memoirist. There's so much going on right now politically, and I know that many people in the LGBTQIA plus community, it's tough. We're struggling because there are laws trying to be passed to basically make our existence difficult, if not impossible. And so I felt like now was the time to talk about a lot of things that have been stewing inside of me for a very long time. I spent a very good long stretch of time as a Texas teacher. And when we talk about Florida and Texas being the butt of the United States, there's a reason for it. Being a teacher in Texas is its own adventure and its own hell. And every time I would talk to friends or colleagues and tell stories about my experiences in Texas, they're like, that can't happen in the United States. There's like a little shelter bubble of liberalism, I swear, in Seattle where people aren't really aware sometimes of how intense things can get outside of this Seattle area. And so part of my job as a writer, I felt, was to talk about those experiences, to tell people, hey, these things actually happen. They happen to kids, they happen to adults. It's not as peachy as your rose-colored glasses kind of make it appear. And so I really wanted to tell my story as a way of explaining what it's like in the rest of the country for many people, but also to give hope that things do get better, that people and experiences, they do influence us and they do impact us both in positive and negative ways, and we can use that. We can use our voices and our power and our privilege to amplify other voices and basically, make the change we want to see in the world. And so that was the reason I wrote Voices Carry. That was its purpose. So on that note, I'm going to talk for a minute about anxiety, because if writing this book has taught me anything, it's that we do need to talk more about mental illness, including panic anxiety, which is something that I suffer from. And it's kind of funny. I was thinking about this in the car earlier today. I was dropping off not voter registration, but our voter ballots in the state of Washington. We do it through mail Dropbox. And I was dropping those off, and I was thinking about the fact that, as a former teacher, I used to stand in a classroom with, anywhere from 25 to 40 students and, crammed in there. And I used to teach. And you learn really quick as a teacher that you cannot be embarrassed anymore, especially when you're teaching middle schoolers, which is what I did. And you get really used to public speaking when you're teaching kids because they have no filter and they absolutely will tell you whatever is on their mind. And if that's like, oh, we don't like your hair today, they will tell you that. And they have no qualms about doing so. And so, I got used to just being in the public eye in that regard. I've even taught, 400 students, how to write. So I figure I should be good for public speaking, right? It definitely helped me as a writer when I later was teaching writing workshops to adults, when I was moderating and being a panelist and guest at conventions. But this experience right now is so different. And my wife Molly was actually asking me earlier what makes it different. And it wasn't until I was in the car earlier that it dawned on me what was different. So when I'm at a bookstore doing a signing, there's people in front of me. I can see all of you. And as someone with autism, it's hard enough to read people's faces and read social cues as it is. But on something like this, all I can see is my camera and me on it. I can't see you. So I don't know if my jokes hit the mark, if I'm boring the snot out of you. Y'all could be sleeping for all I know. And because of that, there's this anxiety that comes with something like this because I have no idea how it's going. And so I wanted to talk about that for a minute because I know I'm nervous. I know that I can be really good at faking it. And people are like, oh, I never knew you were nervous. Yeah, it happens. But also because we need to stop, the stigma that's attached to having anxiety, having depression, having those kinds of things. We're all human. And so I wanted to have that human moment and say, hey, this book, it's all about being human. And yes, I'm having a human moment today because all day I've just been like, I have an event tonight. Yeah, but it's okay. We got this. So those of you who are here, awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to the world that is my brain. All righty. So I mentioned earlier that there are prizes. Hi to Melinda and Coral who are in the comments telling me that they can hear and see me. Hello. There are prizes. And again, you do have to comment so that I know you're here. And then that will enter you into this lovely bit of fun. And later, as we go through the evening, I will give out prize packs that are all about self-care. They do include copies of the book. If you have already ordered one, I love you for that. And you can always give these away. Find a teacher that you care about or someone in the queer community that you think needs a good read and share the love. Speaking of books, I know some people have ordered ebooks, which is great. There is another way that you can get books. I will tell you, the print copies of these are gorgeous. So this is the hardback, which has a lot of fun pictures on the back. Oh, hey, there's me. And, it's a hardback. So you can get it in hardback form. You can also get it in paperback form. And, it looks really cool. And yes, the hardbacks are very pretty. I was very happy with those. If you want autographed copies, you can actually get them from me. That way I get more of the profit, which is always nice as someone who is an author, because authors do not make tons of money, despite what anyone might tell you. Now, obviously, there are people who do, but not most people don't. So in the description for the video, there is a link to my store. I'm also going to stick it in the chat. You can go there. You can order hardback copies, paperback copies from me. You can also order other books of mine, artwork from me, whatever you feel like shopping for. And I will make sure that that gets sent your way, and I'll autograph them and all that fun stuff. So if you're looking for a more personalized experience, that is something you can also do. All right. On that note, I do think it is time for our first prize. There are 4 that I'm giving out tonight. I will give out the 5th and final prize on Friday. Friday night, I'm having a Zoom party, which is a little more informal. So instead of a reading and Q&A and things like that, it will be a bring your own chocolate and drink of your choice. If you can't eat chocolate, you're also welcome to bring whatever. And we're going to have a type of event where I can actually see you and we can chat. And so one of the prizes will be given away on Friday's event, and then for tonight. The first prize pack is actually a couple different things. So it's going to be a paperback copy of Voices Carry from me. It's going to be a NASA blank journal, because I am all about blank journals, and I think that people need more blank journals in their life for self-care. And then also these. They're 5 different scents. They are book-themed candles. They are from my fiction works. This one is The Warrior, and it smells like leather, steel, and whiskey, which is my favorite of the candles. And of course, I can't open it right now because my hand's like, no, not happening. But anyway, it smells really good. And so you'll get 5 different candles so that you can light candles, write in your journal, read Voices Carry, and have lots of self-care. All right. So that prize, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3 people in the comments. All right. So I'm going to pull up the random number generator. The internet is so grand. Random.org. Really? It wants to make sure I'm human. That's really funny. All right. Generate a number between 1 and 3. The number is 3. All right. Coral, you have won I'm writing this down. You have won Voices Carry and some candles and an awesome NASA journal. And I will chat with you at some point. I think I already have your address because I think you have ordered a book from me before. But yes, we'll chat later and I'll get that your way. All right. So 1 prize pack down. On that note, it's time to do a little reading. All right. Oh, it was my Kickstarter. Yep. All right. That works. That works. Okay. So one of the things that I'm going to do to kind of set up the scene here a little bit is that I wanted to be a teacher and a writer since I was 3. My grandmother got me this, I don't know what they call it, but they're kind of these scrapbook kind of things where every year you're supposed to fill out who your friends were and who your teachers were and things of that nature. And you talked about that as kind of like a memory book for each year of your K through 12 education. And so if you flip through mine, because I still have it, K through 12 every year, it was the same. And so it's not really surprising that I became both. But being disabled, non-binary, ADHD, and queer in Texas made that complicated. And so, this book does cover what it's like being a teacher, but it also is a book about finding oneself and the work that needs to be done in all communities to be more inclusive of others. And so this particular scene that I'm going to read from is actually from my very first year teaching. In fact, it happened 1 month into my teaching career. Now, if you don't know anything about education, the colleges where you learn how to be a teacher, so to speak, they don't teach you shit at all. Oh, by the way, I do swear. So, I do that in the book too. It's one of those things where I thought I was ready for a lot, and then I totally wasn't when things went sideways. All right. Here we go. Whenever I'm the most stressed, my dreams and nightmares involve teaching. I suspect because those years involved high levels of stress for me. Sometimes those dreams feature the classroom from hell where students won't listen to me or they hate me. Other times they're attacking me or bullying me. Typical nightmare material. Most often, the dreams are all about the administration. If you've never taught, a school's administrators can make or break a school. In college, we're taught that parental involvement is wanted, and for the most part, that's true. Nothing's worse than a student with parents that don't give two shits about them. You can call about their grades, their behavior, anything at all. And if you're lucky, they answer sober, if they answer at all. If not, they answer and it's things like, well, from 7 to 4, they're your problem. Or, I'm busy, go away. It may be odd, but I actually find both of those responses better than the helicopter parents who decide that their children are God's gift to everyone. Their children are perfect angels at all times, and it's the parents' responsibility to dictate everything about your classroom, including for other people's children. Those parents and administration's reactions to them are the ones that dominate my nightmares. My first teaching job was at East Valley Middle School in Texas, where I taught 7th grade English and reading classes. Oh, and by the way, I've changed the names of everything, just FYI. Some class periods, I served your average kiddos who focused, the classes focused on students with, typical intelligence. But some of my classes focused on students with above average intelligence. They were labeled pre-AP and functioned as preparatory for high school AP classes. It was in one of those pre-AP English classes that I had the stereotypical 13-year-old boy, a bright adolescent, but not as bright as his parents believed him to be, incredibly chatty at all times, and for this particular student, a compulsive liar. For the purpose of this tale, we'll call him Josh, and I'll apologize in advance to any of the Joshes out there for borrowing your name. No matter what I tried to do to redirect his extra energy and chatter, nothing worked. He talked through me and over me every chance he got. When I called Josh on it, he lied. It wasn't him, it was someone else talking. It wasn't his fault. He needed to borrow a marker in the middle of a lesson. I was hearing things. It must be my ears. To be honest, he was a constant pain in my ass. 3 detentions and 2 phone calls later, his behavior hadn't changed one bit. At this point, I met with his other teachers. Surprise, surprise, his poor choices occurred in every class with every teacher. 2 days later, I caught him talking during an exam. He claimed he was asking for a pencil. Never mind that there were free ones in a container at the front of the room. And 5 minutes later, he was talking again. So I asked him why he was cheating. His face flushed beet red as he tried not to cry. I wasn't, honest. Then why were you talking again? You already have a pencil. I needed an eraser. I pointed at his pencil. It's right there. Unable to come up with an answer, he handed me his test. Josh had answered none of the questions correctly. Most of the answers were sarcastic commentary on my teaching style. This time I wrote an office referral. This meant another call home, both from me and the principal. I will admit that my first year of teaching, I had the best principal ever. This was the one rare time I had administration who supported me and genuinely cared about the kids. Despite this, what happened next has stayed with me decades later. The morning after this previously mentioned referral, I sat in my classroom prepping for the day as my first period was my conference period. My principal knocked on my door and I waved her inside. Dr. Webb didn't make it down to my end of the building very often. She was retiring at the year's end and her body didn't move like it used to. But in that moment, she reminded me of a crocheting grandma who'd stab someone with a needle if they even said boo sideways to her grandbabies. Something was very wrong, and as I stood, she motioned for me to return to my chair. "You're going to want to be seated for this," she said as she dragged a chair toward my desk. Being told to sit by your boss is never a good sign. My first thought was that I was being fired. But for that, she would have made me visit her office and not the other way around. Then I wondered if I was being sued for some unknown reason. This is Texas. But the actual reason was nothing I would have ever considered in a million years. "You remember the referral on Josh you wrote yesterday?" I nodded. Constant disruption in class, failure to pay attention, talking back, lack of respect, refusal to serve detention. Yes, I actually do remember the reasons I wrote that. "I'm going to tell you something that happened this morning, and I want you to know that I have your back. When we're done talking, go to the gym or go home and beat up a punching bag because you're going to want to. I've already hired a sub, and it won't come out of your PTO." My stomach tried to battle its way out through my intestines. What in the hell had happened? "Josh's parents were in my office at the opening of school this morning because they wanted me to fire you on the basis that you're a Satan worshiper." I opened my mouth, but she held up a hand to stop me. "It gets worse. Apparently they found out you're a musician and a writer. I guess they found your website." Mentally, I raced through the entirety of my music and writing sites. There was nothing offensive on there, let alone anything screaming satanic, because I'm not satanic. Not that it mattered. We were well out of the 80s, and the satanic panic that drove parents to idiotic decisions, we were past that. So what in the world had these parents thought they'd found? "They told me you wrote piano music, correct?" I nodded. "They stated that your music was in a minor key, and thus proof that you were in league with the devil." I will wait for you to laugh at that one. "Apparently, when Josh got home yesterday and his parents confronted him about his behavior, he told quite a tale about you. He said that you wear black clothing to class every day, and that as you teach, you constantly try and convince, and brainwash was the term, the kids into worshiping Satan with you." At this point, I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. "Black is slimming. I do wear colors, but most plus-size women I know wear some black. As to writing music in a minor key, have they ever listened to any classical composers at all?" She gave a forced chuckle. "Josh claimed that last week you brought one of your cats into the classroom and killed it in front of them, that you sacrificed it to Satan." The laughter died on my tongue. See, I love animals. While my autism is not as profound as in some people, it is present enough that I feel events as if they're my weight to carry. Reading about children in a war zone can lay me flat. I cry at every sappy commercial that can be played. Even the idea of one of my cats dying, let alone me killing it, I was going to be sick. Dr. Webb continued. "Obviously, this is complete and utter bullshit, which is what I told them. Even if you were a Satanist, that's a protected religion under the First Amendment, but I know you've never done any of those things. When I told them that it was likely Josh was lying, and I wouldn't be firing one of my best teachers, they left my office in a huff. And Raven, I truly thought that was the end of it. You mean there's more? She nodded. Apparently, Josh's father is church buddies with Dr. Dents, our district superintendent. Both parents went straight to his office with the same accusations. Now, it wasn't just you, Raven. Josh was written up by another teacher yesterday, one who's been in the district for 25 years. He told his parents she was senile and talked to the cockroaches in the ceiling lights during class. That she asked their opinions on how to give grades and referrals. That she picked who got in trouble based on what the cockroaches said. And sadly, these parents believed that as well. Dr. Webb reached out and patted my hand. Remember, I have your back, okay? This will be all right. Her need to remind me of this terrified me. Dr. Dents believed them, Raven. He went to your website, and when he saw you in a photo shoot wearing what I would assume are raven wings, he claimed they were demon wings. He believes you're a Satanist and a true danger to the students. He immediately called and ordered me to fire you for the children. Just a side note that anyone who uses the phrase for the children is not doing it for the children. Never had more ironic words been spoken by a shriveled up man-child who was gullible enough to believe oblivious parents. I honestly wish I were making this up because it would be easier than living with these memories and the knowledge that in Texas, where it's not legal for teachers to organize, he could do it. He could fire me. It's a right-to-work state where teacher contracts have morals clauses written into them. While they don't actively say you must attend church, reading between the lines made it very clear that I was teaching in the Bible Belt. If you fucked around, you found out. Now, I have no intention of firing you. In fact, I called Dr. Dents an idiot. I told him that if he actually believed any of this, I had some oceanfront property in Colorado to sell him, and then I hung up the phone, she said. But he's your boss. Dr. Webb nodded. I'm going to tell you something that's not public knowledge yet, but I plan to retire at the end of this year. My husband is Dr. Dents' right-hand man, and when I called my husband, he already knew, as he'd been at the meeting where they discussed your future in the district. He said he couldn't keep a straight face, and he had to excuse himself to go have a laugh in the hallway about how ridiculous this is. The thing is, this is the hill I will die on. They can't do much to me at this point, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let them ruin a promising career over such nonsense. So don't you worry, you're not going anywhere. Since I knew this would upset you, I've got the sub here. Go somewhere, let all this out. When you come back tomorrow, we'll make a plan. I can't tell you whether or not to obtain legal representation, but you might want to consider it. At first, I'd been afraid of losing my job, but as I sat there, I realized that in some ways I held the upper hand. Dr. Dents may have ordered me fired, but if he followed through, I would sue. I'd be walking away possibly with a lot of money. Bible Belt or not, I did have some rights. Maybe. Dr. Webb, while I appreciate the sub, I don't think I need it. If Dr. Dents wants a fight, bring it. I'm no Satanist, and even if I was, as you said, that's a protected class. The worst he can do is strip me of my teacher's license. But the worst I can do is try to drain the district of millions and millions of dollars. I'd be sitting on an island, sipping fruity drinks and making art. I love teaching, but I'll be damned if I'm going to go down without a fight. A huge grin brightened her face. Good girl, was all she said before she left my classroom. The first thing I did was call my wife, who was as pissed off as me. She wanted to find these parents and beat them with the belt they clung to, and if I'm honest, so did I. Instead, I smiled as students streamed into my classroom, completely unaware of the chaos in my world. But the thing is, 7th graders are more aware than most people think. In my 13 years teaching middle school students, there was rarely a time they didn't pick up on something bothering me. Being autistic, I realize now that I tend to wear my emotions on my face. But I know how to mask to some degree and be normal when I need to. My first class was unusually well behaved, and upon leaving, one of my more rambunctious students gave me an unsolicited hug and hoped everything was okay. Oof. Josh's class was after lunch, and as expected, he walked toward my class with a chip on his shoulder a mile high. I truly believe he thought I'd be gone, because when he saw me in the doorway, he froze. The smirk fell off his face, and he stood in the middle of the hallway like a kid who's been told no for the first time. When he stumbled into my room, he took his seat in unusual silence. I had to bite my tongue, because I really wanted to ask if he was surprised to see me. My day went from furious to slightly less furious with a touch of Schadenfreude. For that entire class period, he remained silent. A miracle if I'd ever seen one. Subdued would be the word for it. 2 days later, I was called into a meeting with Dr. Webb and Josh's parents. While I believed I legally had some power, it was still Texas. The district could find other ways to destroy my career. Being a first-year teacher, they could non-renew my contract, claiming budget cuts. The phrase last in, first out is muttered constantly in schools across the country. They could keep me as a teacher, but assign me to the worst performing school with the toughest, most challenging and violent students, or assign me to teach classes no one wanted. They could have me teaching one class total and spending the rest of my day babysitting students in the in-school suspension room. Or they could just fire me altogether and not give a reason. Welcome to at-will employment. Dr. Webb winked at me before she introduced me to two adults already seated. Neither parent accepted my offered hand. I'd intentionally worn a bright blue dress with green and teal teardrops on it. And as I said, I spied the mother studying the pattern. "It's Paisley," I said, and I waited for her to fire off something about it being foreign. If you're not familiar, Paisley actually comes from the Middle East as a pattern, so. Instead, she flinched at my words as if I'd struck her. This woman was terrified of me. Something of note, I'm 5'2" on a good day, and I'm fat. While all of my family is tall, I inherited my great-grandmother's short and wide genes. Someone being afraid of me is like being afraid of a kitten, though on second thought, kittens have razor-sharp claws. Dr. Webb summarized the events prior to our meeting and asked me to follow up with Josh's behavior in class. I brought up dates and specific behaviors, which I'd noted in my lesson plan book, and nowhere in these notes was any sort of sacrifice or hailing of Satan. I didn't say that, but I really wanted to. My principal then asked Josh's parents what they wanted to see as a result of the meeting. The first words out of his father's mouth was a tirade about me being a Satanist and wanting me fired. Dr. Webb held up her hand and tutted the way teachers often do to silence a young child. "Mrs. Oak's employment isn't up for debate. She's done nothing wrong here, while your son has. He's been a constant disruption in all his classes, so unless you'd like to fire all 7 of his teachers, that's not a reasonable solution. What can we do to help Josh better succeed?" Wait a principal. I mean, wow. Every time Josh's father opened his mouth to discuss my alleged sins, she refocused the meeting on Josh. Imagine that. It was a serious lesson in how to deal with helicopter parents, though it was sad to learn that so early in my career. By hour's end, we still lacked a plan on how to help Josh succeed. Dr. Webb dismissed me to go teach my next class, and as I left, Josh's father was already ranting and railing again against me, Dr. Webb, the district, everybody. And then for 2 weeks, radio silence. Josh stayed relatively well behaved, but he would not talk to me at all. In fact, when he needed help, he'd ask every single classmate before coming to me. And then when he did ask for help, he sputtered and winced like my words were verbally whipping him. Discipline through fear was something I knew too well. I didn't want it for him or for any of my students, honestly, so the one day I called Josh up to at the end of class. "You and I both know I'm not evil incarnate. I'm not a Satanist, and I've never sacrificed anything in my life. The first day of class, I told you all that I'd been a vegetarian since I was a teen. But you got in trouble, and your way of getting out of it was to make up lies about me, right?" He stared at me but said nothing. Look, you're stuck in my class. I'm the only pre-AP English teacher for the entire 7th grade, so unless you're wanting to mess up your high school plans, you're stuck with me. I appreciate that you're behaving now, but you have to stop acting like I'm going to flay you alive. If you need help with something or have questions, ask them. I'm not going to bite. He remained silent but gave the briefest nod of his head before the bell rang, and he fled my classroom. It was a week after this that I had my first opportunity to meet my superintendent. Because Dr. Webb was retiring, and word had gotten out at that point, the district had decided to throw her a retirement party. Dr. Webb warned me in advance that Dr. Dents would be present. You can skip it, she said. No reason for you to attend. I'm not going to miss your retirement party. Also, there's no way he's chasing me from my own school. Good girl, she said in a short email response. When I arrived in our school's library for the party, he stood near the door amongst a group of 6th grade teachers. I didn't know him very well because this was really early in the semester and I was new to the school. But I did enjoy meeting others, so being the extroverted introvert I am, I walked over. Dr. Dents was almost as short as me, and he carried himself delicately. I'd pictured someone who was tall and maybe imposing, especially for a man threatening my job. He was soft-spoken, but his warm laugh held more force than necessary. He spotted me when I was a few steps away. His eyes widened as he stiffened. Whatever he'd been saying, he stopped and excused himself before striding away from the group. After that, he spent the majority of the party either fleeing me or staring at me. Whenever I mentioned this to someone, they laughed. I then mentioned it to Dr. Webb, and she gestured for me to follow her. Sitting in the corner was Dr. Webb's husband, along with Dr. Dents. He could run from me, but he couldn't run from the guest of honor. Dr. Dents, I'd like to introduce you to one of my best teachers here, Mrs. Raven Oak. I held out my hand, and honestly, I thought he'd die of shock before he'd take it. But he did. He touched me as little as possible, though. If there'd been a decontamination room in that library, he'd have run straight to it. Instead, he said, well, and stood there in silence. It's nice to meet you, Dr. Dents. But I do have a meeting I need to get to. One with an attorney. Did I really have a meeting with an attorney? Of course not. But watching that little man squirm was worth the white lie. Despite Josh and his parents, I made it through my first year teaching. No matter what his parents said to Dr. Dents, no more effort was made to fire me, at least not that year. At this point, I was still very in the closet about a lot of things, so it was easier to dodge this metaphorical bullet. Throughout my career in this district, Dr. Dents and I ran into each other a few more times. Each time he fled like his tail was on fire. Perhaps seeing me was a special kind of hell for him. The kind maybe where liars and judgmental folks go. All right, so there's more to this story because later I did end up teaching Josh's brother. And that was interesting. And yes, I had to meet his parents again. But you'll have to buy the book to find out how that went. And I see Pandem has joined us. And yes, thank you for the congratulations. And so I am looking at the comments real quick. Yeah. Some teachers don't have much of a filter and can get away with saying a lot of things, especially in more liberal areas and areas where teachers are unionized. Texas is not that in either case. So yeah, that I had to be very careful about everything that came out of my mouth. And as someone who's autistic, I failed a lot at that, which is why I was constantly getting in trouble with administration for asking questions I wasn't supposed to ask out loud, or because I documented meetings between people that they didn't want in writing, because then the administration would have to admit they were doing something wrong. So, there was a lot of that going on. All right. And since we have done our reading, I am going to go ahead and give away another prize pack. This one is a special prize pack because it is for a hardback copy. Also, in addition to the hardback copy, you'll get a copy of my coloring book, which I do not have right in front of me at the moment, but that's okay. You're going to get a pack of really awesome brush tip markers. You're going to get some amazing colored pencils. You can tell there's a color theme here, right? You're also going to get a copy of one of my favorite coloring books, brand new from my collection, that I just hadn't gotten to yet because I have a million coloring books and I just want to share the love. And so, yeah, you're going to get lots of things to color. You're going to get something to read. I forgot. And you're also going to get the 5 candles. So again, all about self-care with this book. All right. So we now are up to 4 people in our random number generator. I know that there are a couple other people watching because I can tell on the feed. If you want to be entered for this contest, make a comment in the comment section of the chat. I know one of them is probably my wife Molly for quality control, so she does not get to enter. Yes, you can never have enough coloring books. That is absolutely true, Elise. And yes, it is an awesome prize pack. Pandem has had the honor of getting a prize pack before that was a mystery box, and he did a unveiling of that, and so he had lots of fun figuring out what everything was in that box, and my wife is like pouting now that she can't enter this. Haha. All right, so let's generate 1 through 4. Number 1. Ooh, Elise, go you. Elise, you have won the awesome hardback and the coloring set and the candles. And Pandem still uses the poop emoji keychain. Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. It was a glittery poop one, right? Or was it the regular one? I can't remember now. Oh, coloring party win. Yeah, we totally should do that sometime. Awesome, awesome. All right. And we do have 2 more prize packs coming up through the evening. Regular. Okay. I think one of those boxes that we did for conventions and prizes, we did like mystery boxes back when they were really, really popular. I think one of them did have a glittery poop emoji as well. I really wish that I'd had that one in that box because that would have been up your alley, Pandem. If I ever find one again, I'll have to send it to you. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about briefly is the difference with fiction and nonfiction. As a writer who writes science fiction and fantasy, I have what all authors and writers do. It's something called an authorial voice. It's kind of like the style or the voice that we as authors have. It's why when you read Stephen King sounds like Stephen King, and why when you read somebody else, they sound like themselves. Like, we tend to have a particular style. Well, my style tends to be a little bit different between science fiction and fantasy. For some reason, it shifts a little bit with the genres. But writing nonfiction, particularly a memoir, was really eye-opening for me because it was kind of like inviting you to walk into my head. The voice that comes through in the book, it's like we're sitting down and having tea and having a conversation. And don't worry, I mean, the book's been edited and it's gone through the whole, process and all that. But it's still very intimate. It's very different from writing fiction. And it was surprising to me because I didn't expect that, I guess. I should have, but I didn't. And thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer's like, I trust your writing style. And so, yes, it kind of caught me off guard that my internal voice that comes through when I'm writing shifted like that. I know that the reviews that have come through, editorial reviews and things like that, um, have been very positive about that, I guess, inner monologue voice coming through into the story. And so, if you're coming in late at all, I see a couple more people have popped into the feed. When we're done, you can go back and you can hear the parts you missed, including the reading if you missed that. Um, in the um, in the memoir, I will tell you that yes, it does deal with teaching, but not only teaching. I kind of mentioned it early in that it does deal also with being queer, with being autistic, with just being disabled, being all of these things that we label as other. And being othered is not a fun thing, especially not in the state of Texas. And so it's kind of my experiences filtered through all of that. And how in the world did I survive these things? How did I figure out myself as a writer? Like, where did all of that come from? And so that's really what the book is about. I had someone ask me, what do I expect people to get out of the book? And that's kind of a multiple answer, I guess, kind of thing. Um, Teachers, I want them to better understand their colleagues and their students. I want them to understand, especially if they're not queer, if they're not autistic, if they're not, fill in the blank, um, that their words and their actions have weight, they have consequences, that the things they say and do and model for their colleagues and their students matter. Because most of my colleagues and administrators either had no idea or didn't give two shits about how harmful the things that they were saying and doing to me were. And so I want teachers to have a better understanding of how to be there for those communities, how to be a better teacher. For queer people, I want you to know you're not alone, that you don't have to go through everything alone, that there are online communities and other people out there that are here for you, that we have your back, and that it does get better. Because these are all things I wish somebody had said to me when I was much younger. To everyone else, I want people to understand compassion, empathy, to understand, again, how they can better support all of these different communities in case they have friends and family in those communities, because I guarantee you do. All right. So I have a couple of other things I can talk about, but because it is 6:48, I want to do two things. I want to do another prize pack giveaway while, if you have questions, please ask your questions in the chat and I will get to those in a moment. So prize pack number 3, a little bit different. You're going to get a paperback copy of Voices Carry that's autographed. You're going to get one of my coloring books. You are going to get a different colored pencil set, because I can't give you a coloring book without giving you something to color with. That's just a crime. And you're also going to get candles. So, nice little prize pack. All right. And let's see. So, Elise and Coral have won. But we have a couple people who haven't. I'm going to readjust my list so that we're a little fair and maybe spread the love. All right. So, let's generate a winner. Oh, hey, Pandem, you have won something. All right, go you. You have won the paperback copy and some coloring books and candles and all kinds of fun stuff. And again, if you have already bought copies, you can share the love, spread the wealth, I do not have a problem with regifting or anything of that nature, so never feel bad for that. In Pandem, I will chat with you later and make sure the address I have is good, and then I will send stuff your way. And yes, everybody always needs more colored pencils, truly. All right, so we have a couple questions. Is there something in the book that I really want someone to ask me about? Gosh. There's just so much in the book. I actually don't know how to answer that. I think for me, I wish people would ask me more about how teaching has influenced my writing, I guess. I mentioned it a little earlier how teaching, at least standing in front of all those kids who have no filter, influenced and strengthened my ability to do public speaking and talk in front of others and not feel really nervous. But I think when you're standing in front of kids and you're teaching them, but you're also learning from them, there's so much that they can teach you, truly. There's an honesty in kids that I wish writers would bring to writing more. And I feel like having been a teacher previously has helped me do that as a writer, that I have an easier time sharing emotions through my characters and just being more genuine, I guess, because I've had those experiences. I hope that answers your question. And Pandoms asked, do I feel now is the time in American society for the queer community to make its voice heard more? Hell to the yes. I think I talked a little bit earlier about the fact that when I moved up here, at least Seattle kind of had this liberal bubble around it. And when I would talk about my experiences as a teacher, people were that can't happen. This is America. That doesn't happen. Like, people were genuinely shocked. And so I think when a certain someone was elected in 2016, he does not deserve to come out of my mouth. That name is just no. So, but you know who I'm talking about. When he was elected, I watched a lot of my friends who were shocked by things that happened in Texas. Suddenly, they were a little more aware and alert of the things that were happening in the country. And I think that opened a lot of eyes. But I also feel like because that happened, it proves that we're not safe necessarily. Like, you can't be like, okay, we voted in our first person of color president, everything's great. Like, fascism is still here, it's still rising, shit's happening. You can't turn off the blinders, put the blinders on and like, pretend everything's peachy. And so I feel like now more than ever, especially with the election coming in November, we do need to be vocal. We do need to speak out more. And it's hard. It's hard as hell because it's scary. To speak out, you put yourself at risk. Writing this is a massive freaking risk. And it was hard, and it's the most vulnerable I've ever been in my entire life. And it was so freaking necessary because I can't be silent anymore. I cannot hide things anymore. If we really want change to happen, if we really want equity, if we want people to understand that we're human, we have to be vocal at a minimum. And so, yeah, now is the time. Cheetolini. Yes, I like that. I like that. That works. Melinda's asking, what do you hope readers will take away from the book? Yeah, you did miss that when you went to take cold meds. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, so basically just learning compassion and empathy, understanding that disabled people are human and queer people are human, and autistic people and ADHD people and neurodiverse people, we're all human. Like, learning that we're people too, and that your words have consequences. Your words mean something. They have weight. And honestly, I'm kind of sick of carrying some people's weight. So, that's kind of what I'm hoping people get out of it. Yes, teachers are human. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. You know, the the classes that enjoyed my teaching the most, who got the most out of me as a teacher, were the classes where I was the most human, where I was the most honest, where I wasn't afraid to say, I'm having a really shitty day, y'all. It just, you know, they kids connect with that, and if you act like a robot and you put up a million filters and never show who you are, they know, and you're fake and they don't like it. Trust me. All right. I don't know if we have any other questions, but I'm going to run through something really quick before I do some wrap up stuff in the last prize pack. Top 3 misconceptions basically about teaching. We do not get summers off. People don't get this, but the way teaching contracts work in most of the country, at least, is that we are paid for 10 months work. So in the summer that we have off, we're not paid. Now they divide our pay across 12 paychecks. So we get a paycheck, but we're not paid for that time off. And we're, at least in Texas, we're expected to use that time to do professional staff development. In Texas, at least, I was required to do a certain number of graduate hours of school to maintain my certification on my own time that I had to pay for. And so that's what I was spending most of my summer doing, and not, at the pool. Second misconception, that I'm a I'm on my own. Wrong line. That we can teach whatever we want, including the queer agenda. Yeah, no. There are actual standards in states about what you're supposed to teach, and we get evaluated on that. That we get paid a lot. Yeah, no. I know that there are some states, especially unionized areas, where some teachers make a decent paycheck. In Texas, I started off teaching in the highest paid district in the state, and my pay was $32,000 a year. And when I stopped teaching, 13 years experience and a master's degree in computers, I was making $48,000. That's not a lot of difference. And again, these were in the higher paid districts. I had friends who worked in rural areas that were making $18,000 a year as teachers. Top 3 misconceptions as writing. That I have all the time off I want. No, I have deadlines and things to do just like any other job. That I'm a famous millionaire. Ha ha, no, I wish. And that it's easy. No, it's not. Even writing something that is, intimately in my brain, like this memoir, was not easy. All right. And let's do our last prize pack of the night. This one's going to be pretty similar to the last one. It's going to be a paperback copy. It's going to be a coloring book. It's going to be a set of colored pencils, because again, I cannot give away a coloring book without pencils. And it's going to be candles. I am all about the candles. All right. We have a couple people left who have not won. Let's see who wins. All right. And the winner of the last prize pack of the night is Melinda. Awesome, awesome. I will make sure that the address I have on file is good, and I will make sure that that gets sent your way. Okay. So, on that note, we're coming up on 7. I'm going to do a couple last minute reminders. Just a reminder that if you would like to support author me, the URL is in the comments. You can order autographed copies. You can order them for all of the queers and teachers in your life, people that love reading, however you want to do that. The link is there. The power is yours. Also, another reminder that Friday night, we're going to do a little bit more intimate party in terms of bring your own chocolate or dessert, sweet, whatever of your liking, or protein if you happen to be Jennifer. And bring your own drinks, and we'll get on Zoom. We can see each other. We can chat. We can have a good old time. We're going to do that so that we can celebrate Voices Carry in a little less strict form. And I will have to put this on my website, y'all. I totally forgot about that. Jennifer's mentioning some rosemary gluten-free cookies. I tend to like my gluten. However, Jennifer is gluten-free, and she gave Molly a recipe. And while Jen was at Gen Con, Molly made rosemary gluten-free cookies off that recipe for Jennifer and her husband, Jeff. And they are freaking phenomenal, y'all. Oh my gosh. Really, really good. I will have to put that recipe on my website for y'all because y'all need to make those cookies. They're really, really good. And yeah, you can totally bring those on Friday if you happen to make them by then. And so, yeah, on that note, unless anybody has any last questions, I think we are in good shape. And I'm going to actually, Molly, please write down somewhere that I need to post the recipe on my website so that I'll actually remember to do it. And that way y'all can make some yummy, yummy cookies. Because yeah, they really came out really good. I want to, sorry, Molly's like staring at the Tupperware. Yeah, I want to take a moment and thank you for coming out and supporting this awesome book that was really difficult to write and was totally, totally worth it. But I wanted to thank you for coming. I am really happy that y'all won some great stuff. And yeah, on that note, I hope y'all have a really, really good evening. Again, if you came in late, you're welcome to hit rewind when this is done, and you'll be able to watch it all from the beginning. All right. Oh, hey, there's one last question real quick. What's my next book? A Maskin's Honor. It is coming at the end of this year, towards the end of this year. That is my next book. So I'm really, really excited about that one. And there will be a special box set with it and bonus books and cloth maps and all kinds of crazy stuff on Kickstarter next year. So, save up some money and keep your eyes peeled for that as well. And thank you. I could not have written this book without all of you. Truly, truly. Have a good one.